So before we begin, I just want to shout out my patrons: Dudley Reiner, Crimson, Consular, 10, Nude Banner, Jonah Rodriguez, Ariel Kersey, and Roik Air. I'm very much grateful for your support, and if any of you want to support me on Patreon, you can always find the link in the description below. Hey guys, I'm Naya, and welcome back to the channel. So I still haven't gone to sleep. I'm very much cozied up in my bathrobe, and I'm ready to talk to you guys about the best decks post the ban list. I've had some time to think, and I came up with a couple ideas and a couple things to mention in regards to the decks that were the best decks right now and didn't really get hit. There's a lot to talk about. Also the ones obviously that did get hit, because I do think the Tearlament and Sprite are still going to be top contenders moving forward. Tearlament much more obviously, but we're going to discuss everything. So please, in the comments down below, I would love to hear your thoughts on the ban list, on the upcoming format, on what you're going to be playing, and also maybe if any of your decks got hit, which if they did, you know, I feel very bad for you. Like I said, I feel horrible for dragons. That's like the only thing that I really, really feel bad for. So with all of that being said, you know, we can get even more cozied up and just chill and just discuss the decks. So the first one is going to be Tearlament. Like, obviously, it's going to be the best one moving forward. It's insane. It didn't get hit, like, almost at all. Snow hit and the punk stuff, let's be realistic, it's not a hit to Tearlament. It's still the greatest deck. We're almost approaching something like a tier 0 format, I think, with Ishizu cards. It's obvious they're trying to sell Magnificent Mavens, which you can't blame them. But on the other hand, Tearlaments would probably deserve a hit. Since they didn't get one, I figure it's kind of doesn't really make sense to talk about it anymore. Like, it didn't happen. We are, like, quote unquote stuck with Tearlament. So moving forward, what's going to happen to it is pretty much going to almost stay the same. I say almost because obviously right now the combo variants were very much geared towards sending Snow with Curious. Right now, when you're not going to be sending Snow, there's always the option to send another Tearlament name, because sometimes I even remember from my games, it happens where you don't get enough access to your Tearlament side of things, so you don't even send Snow. Now, this is like a very drastic example, but sometimes you would use just Tearlaments to send them with Curious. So I do think combo variants are still an option. Now, maybe punk stuff is not exactly the way to go, but you still have combo stuff, and you have Lunalight stuff, which I think is really strong together with it. The other strong thing would be Despia for sure. It's a very powerful engine, also by itself, but paired up with Tearlament, I think it has a lot of potential. The next thing we need to mention, of course, would be Darkwing Blast support. So Tearlament is getting support, Sprite is getting support as well. So we are going to be mentioning this when it comes to Sprite as well. So that's a bit of a spoiler, but basically Darkwing Blast support I think is going to be great for Tearlament. And also Ishizu cards. So the support is coming. So the builds are going to be evolving even more. And what else is there to mention? So there's Sprite stuff as well. So you can still pair it up with Sprite, because if you do mill, which you will, especially if you play Curious, again, you mandatorily mill 3 with Kid Kalos, with Merlin, with the support, with the Scream, you are going to be milling even more. So like, since you are milling a lot, there's always the option to hit Sprite stuff to revive them with Elf. Of course, if you play a bigger package, there's also the option of just drawing into it, and like, I think it's still a solid option. And of course, there's also the pure stuff with just hand traps, which I also do think is very much dependent on the format. So it would take some time for the format to sort of calm down and just chill after the ban list. And then it's going to become very, very much apparent which hand traps are going to be great, which kinds of versions of decks are going to be great as well. So I do think like Tearlament is going to be the best one, and I don't know, it feels kind of scary, but I am interested in the format to come. So when it comes to Tearlament, then we have Sprite. So Sprite is like, at first glance, maybe it seems like with Ronin Toadin, it just completely is gone, but I most definitely disagree, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of people still think Sprite is going to be great. Like, you still have all of the basic engines which, you know, could be played, like Nimble stuff, like Dark Beckoning Beast stuff, and you need to look at Frog stuff as well. Like, if you don't get rid of Swap from the field, you can still make Toad, you know, you just use something else to go into elf, you revive another swap, and you make toads still, so it's not that bad. And with the support, the link is insane coming in Darkwing Blast, so that's really, really nice as well. And then what else do we have? So we have versions, right? There's obviously Runic stuff. I think Runic has immense potential moving forward. Like, it's really good. It really reminds me of Sky Striker because it's that different. And with the Runic Hugin, whatever it's called, like the level 2, of course, is a sprite extender. So not only are the Runic quick play spell cards really nice when it comes to their actual effects, and also being able to banish the opponent's deck, not only are you taking like resources, amount of cards in hand, in deck, but there's also like mine outs because Sprite was able to utilize mine as well. And the next card it utilizes is also D-Shifter. And like with Tearlament being as popular moving forward, D-Shifter I think is really, really strong, especially because right now you're not going to be afraid of banishing Ronin Totem. So it's like you don't really care that much, if you know what I mean. So I don't know, like I said at the beginning, it may seem like it's not going to be that great, but I do disagree. I think it has very high potential, but a lot of thought process is going to go into perfecting the build. So that's what I feel like is going to happen. Although I do think there's going to be a huge gap between the power of Tearlament and Sprite, but I guess we'll just see, after time. Did I mention the Evo Twin stuff? I think I did. Also Tri-Brigade, that's what I wanted to say. Like, there's so many different versions and options to do with sprites. So, yeah. Moving on, we have Mathmech. So, a couple words on Mathmech. Similarly to Sprite, actually, like, it has a lot of space for hand traps. And Tearlament is quite easily stopped with multiples of hand traps, at least in my opinion. So, the ability of Mathmech to run a lot of them is really, really strong. And like, you have Super Factorio, of course, it's a busted trap card, and just overall I think Mathmech was always a deck with potential, but without the circular, it was obvious that it was missing something, right? So right now with circular, it really rose to the equation, and I do think it's going to be a very strong pick moving forward, just like it was basically. Obviously nothing got hit, so there's that. And you also have Despia, again a deck that wasn't hit. It wouldn't really make sense to hit it, I think. Maybe like a couple months back we were talking about potentially preemptively hitting Despia, but it does seem power crept after like Power of the Elements happened. So right now it can either be played quite like pure, the same as it used to be, and also together with Tearlament, so you have different options. And like overall, being a very cheap deck, it might see even more play, since right now Tearlaments are going to go go up in price. That's what I wanted to say, and become expensive. And if you're looking for like a solid fusion option, which would be Despia, like it's also very cheap, so that's also really cool. So there's Exosister, just we mentioned D-Shifter. Like Exosister, again, everything it has been doing up until this point, like it's going to be doing the exact same thing. I just wanted to mention it because to me it doesn't seem like the strongest deck. It just seems like a great Tearlament matchup, and since Tearlament wasn't really hit, it's going to be one of the best decks. And Exosister being basically an anti-meta strategy at this point, it's going to be a great counter. So that's why I wanted to mention it. And since we are talking about kind of anti-meta stuff, we could mention Flunder as well. It's going to be very much meta, but it is like a direct counter to some of the top decks, with it being able to run D-Shifter. Again, D-Shifter is an insane card. We sort of speculated it's not going to get hit, and this really was the case. So yeah, just the exact same Flunder with Barrier Statue and Pen. Like, the continuous spell card is also a great way of removal. You're able to play Mystic Mine, which you're able to play in a lot of decks. And yeah, just it is struggling with consistency, as we all know. But still, I do think also being a cheap deck, again, like it's going to be a great option moving forward if you're looking for that kind of deck. Then the next one is going to be Rika. Also, like, Rika is a deck that utilizes Mystic Mine. We are going to see this pattern come up a lot due to Mystic Mine not being hit, and due to these decks, they were able to like utilize Mine before. So moving forward, I think it's going to be again omnipresent in the meta, and Rika can abuse mine, it can abuse rivalry as well. On top of it being able to build really solid boards, like you have so many different types of disruption when it comes to the Rika deck. It also has an archetype, but like built-in Mystic Mine out. So even if they played against you, it's okay. Like it's all good. And like I said, with the new Rika support, it's really, really nice, and it is building really solid M boards. So I do think it's going to be a very, very nice contender for some of the top spots. And then we also have Sky Striker, again a Mystic Mine deck. I don't want it to seem like these decks wouldn't be doing anything without Mystic Mine, because I do think Sky Striker, even though it's very highly dependent on Mystic Mine, I think it has a nice tier limit matchup. I think it's like overall really, really strong, it being such a specific deck, similarly to Runic. It's just that different that it's kind of hard to disrupt it. And Sky Striker especially, because you have so much space for hand traps, you are able to consistently stop the tier limit deck or any other deck, because you play that many, because you have that much space that you are going to be seeing at least 2 in your opening hand, and for the most part 2 are enough. And when Sky Striker has been out for a very long time, so I don't really need to explain it, but like when you get going and you start to amass that many resources as a Sky Striker deck can manage to like get and accumulate, I think like it just leaves the opponent behind. And like with the access code OTK, I also wanted to mention, because Fiber did get hit, you still have like your spellcasters in the form of the charmers. So if you go into a charmer and you get a spellcaster, you can still go for Celine stuff if you have a spellcaster in the graveyard, which you probably will because of Veiler. So it's not like directly accessible through Fiber, and then you go obviously into access code, but you don't even need to go into Celine for a spellcaster play if you just go with Dark, and the thing you revive, Dark is like the most common one, and an additional body. So again, you still have the access code potential, which I think is really, really strong, because the deck does need a lot of different sort of win conditions, you could say, and Sky Striker manages to do that really well. You have just the fact that they amass resources, slow the game down to their level, to their speed, and like Mystic Mine, obviously, it's also very strong. So I do think this is a very, very high potential contender. And then we also have 2 trap decks. So I wanted to mention Outlich. I also wanted to mention Ultrageist. So we're gonna start with Outlich, and obviously Outlich I think has been overall a nice contender. I don't think that many people gravitated towards it, just because like the best decks were a bit better, so you would probably rather play a really, really good deck, or maybe Ultrageist because it was like an interesting trap deck together with Mystic Mine and stuff like that. So even though Outlich didn't see that much play, at least from what I've seen, I think it's a really strong contender, and has been, with the ability to run specific trap cards for matchups against the best decks, and also the floodgates, also Mystic Mine, also tier limit packages, Despia packages, and just the Outlich engine by itself is really, really strong, and like just does even more for this pile of trap cards and like random engines, Mystic Mine. Like there's just a lot. There's a lot going on, and I do think moving forward with Red Reboot like just gone, so there's no more threat, I think it's going to be again a really nice choice for you. And also Ultrageist, like Mystic Mine deck, like again, I do think like when it comes to Ultrageist, it's a bit more dependent on Mystic Mine than some other decks, because inherently on its own, I do think it got quite a lot power crept, and it just wasn't as strong. But with Mystic Mine and like Secret Village is also really strong. Mystic Mine just gets them there because it gives them additional turns. So again, I think it's a really, really solid trap contender. So before we mention Runic, and I want to mention them again because I do think they're on their own a very solid pick as well. So naturally, first we can mention the Sprite stuff as well, the tier limit stuff as well. So mashups do exist, but also if you want to play them pure, again, Mystic Mine, Demise of the Land, and just their spell cards, obviously. Just their spell cards make this pure Runic deck with, I mean, you can play trap cards as well. Like at the end of the day, you can just go for like floodgates and stuff like that, because that really seems like one of those really toxic decks. And I do think it's going to see play. Like it's just a weird matchup. For the top decks, it gets rid of outs because it banishes your cards. So even if you have Mystic Mine outs, let's say, they get rid of them. And if you're playing almost any kind of meta deck, you're bound to special summon at some point. So Demise of the Land is active, and like, it's just stupid. It is what it is. I do think the Runic engine overall is really, really interesting, but I'm not looking forward to playing against the pure build, but I did want to mention it. And then we also have Drychan. So not that much to say about it. Like, bent into 3 seems kind of scary, to be honest with you. Like, if Joel has any kind of like, if it reappears in the meta, it's going to hurt Drychan, obviously. But with Benton, it's getting consistent access to it. And with like Vanity's Ruler and other different versions of Drychan and the ability to run going second cards, with all of that, I do think Drychan is like very good moving forward. Like, I don't know how many people will really like lean towards it because there's so many different picks that you know, just decks that you can choose from. But I don't know. Like, if you're into Drychan, if you still have them, and they're also really cheap with the Diviner reprint, so this is also really, really nice. It could go in the honorable mentions. We're going to mention a couple decks in that sort of category, but I didn't want to mention it separately just because of, like, Benton, obviously. It doesn't have Eva yet, so it's not full power yet, but I do think it's almost there. So now we're at the honorable mentions, and Sword Soul is one of the decks that also wasn't hit similarly to Despia. Basically, everything just remained the same. It's still a solid pick. It has a huge OTK potential and is just really, really strong going second. It can utilize Mystic Mine, Rivalry, almost any kind of like almost any card can be fit into the flex spots because it does have a lot of them. So you either play like going second cards, hand traps, whatever you want. Since we're on the topic of hand traps, like Marince's being a 1-card combo deck, it's obviously very consistent and has a lot of space for those. So also a good choice. And then for the last one, we're going to be mentioning Labyrinth. So there is a lot of different decks probably to mention, but I didn't want to run it off with Labyrinth because with Darkwing Blast support, it's going to get even better. And even without it, I do think it's like a solid option. And trap decks are going to get better because there's no red reboot. And yeah, it just seems interesting. And it seems worth looking into. And yeah, there's also pure Mystic Mine. Almost forgot to mention it. Mystic Mine is still legal. Red Reboot is gone. So there's even no out to their Inevitable Judgment or Dark Bribe. So that's something to think about. Maybe we are ending on sort of a sad note because I'm mentioning Pure Mine, but like be aware of it. Please like just keep it in mind because we are going to be stuck with Mystic Mine for a couple more months. With that, we're gonna end things here. I'm excited for the format to come. I do think it's going to be almost tier 0 with Tier Lament. And yeah, just let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you're looking forward to, what kind of deck you're going to be playing. Maybe I said it at the beginning already, but like, let me know. And yeah, now I'm going to go to sleep. And if you like the video, of course, like it, sub to the channel, check out all the social media, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.